If you're a manager, do you find one-to-one meetings with your team members low value, boring, or even uncomfortable? Do you dread having one-to-one meetings with members of your team, or perhaps even avoid them completely? Are you struggling to improve your employees' performance and help them to develop and grow? Are you fed up of issues, and particularly ones that are reoccurring and result in you having to wade in and firefight as a result? Uh, what I'd love to do is help you to have better one-to-one meetings with your team members, and as a result, help you improve their and also your team's performance. When you do this right, it can be fantastic both for the employee but also for you as the manager in terms of what you can get done, the performance you can get out of your team, and what it can mean for your own performance and your career. But also, it can be enjoyable, because one of the most crazy things for me throughout my career is when I first started, I was as a management consultant. I was told I'd never be a good manager. I just didn't have the people skills. I didn't bring people with me. And so I believed them, frankly. I thought that I could never be a good manager. And so I sought to create my businesses without needing people as much as possible. And where I did need people, my plan, based on what I'd read from the 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss, was that I would use outsourced contractors and so on that would provide the support and the manpower that I needed without me having to manage those people. And I know many other entrepreneurs who are in this situation where they hate the idea of having to manage people, or even they avoid it, or they at least think that they just don't want to do that direct with those one-to-one meetings, and they'd prefer as a result to build a business that either doesn't need people, or that if it does need people, that they don't have to manage them because they're contracts and so on. And what's really interesting is two things. Firstly, in my experience as a entrepreneur who's built multiple businesses now and grown teams, is that even though I didn't want to at the outset, I had to both end up hiring people. I needed people full time. I needed the commitment. I needed the dependability rather than just short-term, part-time contractors. But also that even if I had contractors, and certainly for employees, you need to provide some kind of management and oversight and support and growth. Otherwise, they just become distant from the organization. You don't address any issues, and it's a nightmare. So it does need doing. But the perhaps more surprising thing for me was that I found I really enjoy it. I really enjoy managing people. I enjoy having one-to-ones. And some of the biggest highlights of my career as an entrepreneur have come about as a result of development conversations with my team members, seeing them take on big challenges or scary moves outside of their comfort zones and take small actions supported by me as their manager and achieve amazing things that they didn't think that they were capable of doing. And that is incredibly rewarding as the manager and in those cases as the business owner, but also both personally, but also in terms of what we could achieve as a team. It meant that I've been able to delegate activities and roles that have freed me up my time so that I can elevate my impact and so on. So having those one-to-one meetings, I firmly believe now that as a manager, as a business leader, as a business owner, you should not shy away from, and in fact, done well, they can be one of the most useful tools at your disposal for both improving the performance of the organization, enjoying work, and also elevating your impact. So firstly, I'd love to know what's your feeling about one-to-ones. What do you find worst about them? I'll activate a little poll, I think, which means that you can vote. Let me know what's worst about the one-to-one meetings for you. What do you hate most about them? Why do you hold back from them or find most frustrating? So let me know what you think about one-to-one meetings and the current pain associated with them. While you do that, I'm going to talk a bit about why I think one-to-ones are so important. I'll also talk about why some one-to-ones are done quite badly or poorly and what a good one-to-one can look like. And perhaps most importantly, what you can do to improve those one-to-ones with your teams in a way that makes them easier to run, more enjoyable to run, and most importantly, more valuable to you, so that you want to run them rather than feel like you have to and it's not a particularly valuable thing for you. So firstly, let's start with why have one-to-ones at all? Why do these things? What are they for? What's the key benefits? So I think there's essentially kind of 6 key benefits from having one-to-ones with the employees. The first is that it gives you an opportunity to recognize great work. Now, of course, you can do this throughout the week. You can do this throughout the month. You can and should take any opportunity you can to lavish praise upon your team members for the great work that they've done. However, what a one-to-one provides is an opportunity to take stock and make sure that you've recognized your team members for the great work they've done, even if you haven't necessarily through the rest of the week. But also it gives you an opportunity to not only give praise, but to link that praise back to some of your core values. What is most important in the organization? What is it that the organization values above everything else? So for example, in my businesses, our core values are focus on impact, be proactive and dependable, pay attention to detail, always look to improve, and enjoy the journey. And so in a one-to-one with any team member I have, I am looking for things that they have done that I can link back to the values, and as things that they've done that have positively demonstrated those values. So that's a great thing that you can do. Secondly, in one-to-ones, you can address any issues. Anything that someone has done that you kind of felt like, oh, that wasn't quite how I'd like it done, or caused you a problem or whatever. Now, again, ideally, you pick those up pretty quickly at the time that they happen within the week, but this gives an opportunity during your one-to-one to reflect on those and again link them back to the values. It might even be that throughout the course of a week or a couple of weeks, you've identified a few different examples of issues that have come up, and you can link them together and to identify the fundamental root cause. For example, it might be that there's been a number of cases where work's had to be redone and you've had to step in and help out. And so it might be that you link those together and go, actually, what was the issue here? Well, the issue was that they weren't focused on, in one of our values, focused on impact. They weren't thinking about what's the why behind this. What are we expecting the customer to do with this? And as a result, the work wasn't as linked to the benefit. And as a result, that's what I had to wade in. So it allows you to be more specific about the underlying root cause and help them to address that. So it's a great way in those one-to-ones for you to address performance issues rather than have the same headaches coming up again and again and again. So you can use it to address issues. Thirdly, you can use it to task the team member with something that you need them to do, or perhaps check in on something that they are doing. Now, of course, ideally, you can do this at any point throughout the week and so on, but this gives you a time, even if both of you are busy. And that's probably the crucial for all of this, is these are, in theory, things that you can do as you go along, but in practice, they are easily forgotten and left. And also, you don't want to have to keep on arranging ad hoc time throughout the week to do all this kind of stuff. It's really useful if you have a weekly slot with each team member that you can make sure that all of this is covered. So you can task them, but you can also check in on where they're at. Fourthly, you can use it as an opportunity to engage and connect with your team members. Personally, that's something that I always particularly used to really struggle with, is that how do you do the small talk? How do you connect with people in terms of their relationships and what's going on for them personally in their lives? Because even if you're the sort of manager that goes, oh, I'd rather not know, can't we just talk about work? Their personal lives have an impact on their work lives. And so if someone's going through something really significant for them, and I have multiple examples where that's happening in my teams right now, it is useful context when I'm then thinking about their work, when I'm then thinking about how I approach them or whether I check in with them. And they care. They really do care whether their manager shows an interest and is empathetic and compassionate about where they're at. So those one-to-ones are a great opportunity for you to ask a few questions and just get a temperature check of how they're feeling, what's going on for them, and as a result create more connection. It builds more trust and you'll get more out of the relationship as well. Fifth, you can use it as an opportunity to support and unblock them. So if they're working on a key project, it allows you to perhaps ask some questions to coach them towards better performance, or help identify that maybe there's something that's currently in their way or slowing them down that you can help them remove. You don't want to leave that until a few weeks later and then go, hang on, how's project XYZ? And they say, oh yeah, no, I'm still waiting to hear back from Dennis. And you say, well, how long's that been? Oh, 3 weeks. Oh, well, let's talk about how to address that. Or I could go and have a conversation with Dennis or whatever. Like, you can use that to make sure that your teams are performing and achieving great things, hitting their targets, delivering their projects, their key goals, and not getting stuck. And finally, you can use it to help your team to develop and to grow. We've talked about improving areas, gaps in their performance, but what about improving towards a particular career goal, or taking on a set of responsibilities or a new role that would be beneficial to the organization and to them that gets fulfilled? I've had fantastic conversations with members of my team about what's the role or activity area of expertise that they'd like to build, and sometimes I've been surprised by the answer. They've identified things that I didn't think that they were particularly interested in, and yet they express an interest, and it's great because then suddenly I'm able to say, well, I can totally get you involved in that, and they've started a few tasks, and then that's built into some responsibilities, and then they end up taking on a whole role, and then a couple of roles, and before long they're head of a whole department that's freed up a load of my time as a business leader or as a business owner, or even as a manager, just getting that support, perhaps identifying a good person to deputize for you when you're away, and so on. So there's great ways in which through these one-to-one conversations you can help develop and grow. So that's a huge number of things that are really powerful for using for getting those one-to-ones. I'd love to know what are the things that resonate for you most from those. What's the what are the things that you most value from one-to-ones? Perhaps what's working, what are you using them for at the moment, and which of those 6 areas do you feel could be improved and that you could be taking more advantage of? And I'm going to get rid of this poll. Hang on 1 second. That's active. We'll pause that. Cool. So there you go. So those are the key reasons that I think you should be having one-to-ones with your team members, and that's both for your benefit but also for them as well. Because, for example, they want to have their achievements recognized. They want to receive feedback on any ways in which they can improve. They want to be given more responsibility. They want to engage and connect with you. They want to be supported and unblocked on their key projects and their metrics. They want to develop and grow in their role. So all of those areas are beneficial for you as the manager, but also for the employee. So what's happening for you right now? What does a typical one-to-one look like in your organization? I tell you, based on what I've experienced at some organizations, bad one-to-ones, both parties, the manager and the employee, turn up. They've done zero preparation. They have no sense of what the purpose of that meeting should be. And as a result, it just becomes a 1-hour chat about how things are going. They might both get some value from it. It's good that they get to connect. But without any purpose and clarity and preparation, the results that they're going to get are minimal. And as a result, the manager will find that week after week they start going, this is a colossal use of my time. It's 1 hour a week. I'm not getting anything from it. I don't think they are either. It's a distraction to me. It takes a lot of time. It's not useful. I don't want to do these. And often the conclusion is I'll have fewer of them, right? How many times have you thought that, like, about a particular meeting or whatever? Oh, I'm not sure it's valuable, I'll have it less frequently. That's a really bad reason to have it less frequently. You should always be looking at, why is it that it's not delivering the value? How can you make sure it's delivering value? Frequency should be based on other criteria in terms of how fast you want to move, how much time you want to allow for progress to be made in between, and so on. Not based on value. Value, frankly, if it's not valuable, don't have it at all. If you're not getting the value, don't just do it less frequently, don't have them. Of course, with one-to-ones, I'm not saying don't have them, I'm saying do have them, but make them valuable. They can be so powerful. So that's what a bad one could look like, but a good a good one-to-one meeting with an employee, with a team member, does all those things. It recognizes their performance, it addresses their issues, it helps task them with new responsibilities, it unblocks them, it engages them, it grows them, it does all those amazing things. And so a really good one-to-one between a manager and a team member on a regular basis can catapult the performance of that individual, their ability to deliver to their roles and responsibilities, their achievement of goals, key priorities and projects, and can help them grow as an individual, and ultimately means that you as a manager and you as your team can achieve stellar levels of and it means that you as a manager can achieve stellar levels of performance. So that's what you need from your one-to-one. So the question is, how to do that? How do you create amazing one-to-ones? There are fundamentally the biggest recommendation I can make is that it comes down to preparation. But the good news is that as the manager, actually you don't have to do as much preparation as the employee does. For you, there's not a huge amount that needs to be done, but it is important to do it. So what I'm going to do is share my screen of a particular tool that I use and my managers in my companies use to make that preparation really easy and get the most out of those meetings. So if I switch over, you can see my screen here. You can see I've got a document here which I've kind of anonymized and templatized it and so on so that we can use it on this session. So you can see this is a document that says, it's the manager's notes for a one-to-one with the team member. And you can see at the top of the document, I've got things to cover on the next weekly one-to-one. And I do all my one-to-ones weekly currently. You could do them fortnightly. You could do them monthly. Some organizations do them monthly. I wouldn't recommend less frequently than that. And if you're just starting out or you're wondering, I would suggest start with 30 minutes weekly or an hour fortnightly as a starting point. So as a manager, on a regular basis, you should be updating a document like this. So for example, let's say that you spot an issue that one of your team members does, a mistake that they make. That's a great opportunity for you to collect straight into this document what was the issue, what was the problem it caused, perhaps even think about, what's the root cause of it. You can capture it straight into the document. Alternatively, perhaps it's some recognition you want to give. You want to tell them that they did a really good job on a proposal or something. That's a great time for you to capture that straight into this document, whatever it is. You can do it in a Word document, a Google Doc. I've got this open in just a file in AirManual, but it's it could be a piece of paper. Frankly, the idea is that you don't want any friction. You don't want that to be additional effort for you. When you get that Slack message from another member of the team saying, hey, Johnny did a really good job of this presentation or moderating this team meeting or whatever, you want to be able to very quickly capture it into your notes so that you can refer back to it for performance reviews, so that you can refer back to it for your weekly one-to-ones and so on. So that's my first recommendation, is start with some kind of document for you as the manager. Have one of these for each of your team members with a list of things that you want to capture. So here you can see from the manager's perspective, to cover on the next one-to-one, great job on the proposal for XYZ client, demonstrated great attention to detail and focus on impact. So you can see linking it back to the values. And then here you can see, here's an opportunity to be more proactive and dependable. When you have too many things on your plate, raise your hand so I have visibility. For example, I'm waiting for a draft proposal on the ABC client, but I'm not sure when you'll be able to prepare it. So you can see this the first one is a recognition. The second one is perhaps something that they could do to improve. Maybe another one I might just add in here is help with process for drafting proposals. So maybe I just have an idea, or based on a conversation or whatever, that I think, oh, you know what, we need a process for drafting proposals. They could help. They could create that because they've been helping me with these other proposals. So, I could immediately reach out to them and say, hey, I'd like you to help me with that. But that could be quite a big derail to whatever they're working on right now. Instead, I can just capture it here so that when I come to the one-to-one, I can open this document and I can make sure that I cover off those key things with them. And of course, I can then, update the date here to whatever the date of that meeting was and give myself room then at the top of the document to capture things for the next one-to-one. But that's the idea, is that you need some kind of document to help you as a manager capture the things that you want to cover with your team members, and you want as minimum friction as you can, because then your preparation is easy. Your preparation is done partly throughout the week of collating these sorts of things, but also it allows you to then spend 5 minutes before the one-to-one reflecting. What are the things that they've done well? What are the things that you need to improve? What are the things you want to task them with? What questions do you want to ask based on engaging, connecting with them, based on perhaps previous conversations, personal issues that you're aware of, the fact they've just come back from holiday, whatever it is. What things do you want? What projects are they working on that you want to check in on and or unblock, or things that they could do to unblock you? What questions have you got for them around their career growth and progress against their personal development goals? And I'll come more onto how that conversation gets started in a bit. But you can reflect on those just for 5 minutes before that one-to-one, just to think about, what do I want out of this meeting? What would be most useful to me? So that enables you to do that preparation as a manager. As an employee, there is more that person can do. As a minimum, I'd suggest that they reflect on what are the key wins that they want to share with the manager. So it might be, so I'll have wins in here. It might, what are the key blockers that they've got that are currently holding them back? There might be some things that they want to do to connect with the manager, so to connect on a personal level or whatever, to check in. You have to be a little bit careful with this as an employee, because it depends on your relationship with the manager and what they're like and so on. Some managers are very business focused and perhaps don't want to talk about their personal lives and so on, so that's for you as the team member to learn and judge. Personally, my preference is to create a good open relationship between the manager and the employee, so that they are able to do that sharing, and that creates trust and connection. After all, we're all just humans. We're not management robots who are a completely different species, so I think that's good. But then the other thing would be career development and personal development goals. Okay, so as the employee and as a manager, you can encourage this. Your employees should be planning in advance of that call, that meeting with the manager. What are their wins? What are their blockers? Any questions they've got to connect with them. And by the way, that connection bit might want to be first in terms of when they might ask questions about the person's holiday or whatever, check in on sickness and things, and then finally career development, personal development goals. Now, that could be a 5-minute thing that the employee does before the one-to-one with the manager. And that would be okay. That would result in a probably significantly better one-to-one than most people are having on a regular basis. However, we can do better than that. So here's a checklist that you can give to employees, and I'll provide a link to this. But here's a checklist that you can give to employees to help them to plan their personal development. And indeed, you can use it as yourself as well. It's designed for at any level in the organisation. But the idea is that you can use it to review the big picture and set your personal development goals, and then plan and take action. And so ultimately, this is all about looking at across the various aspects of your role and life, work life, in terms of your career goals, personal goals, job responsibilities, projects, and feedback that you've received, to reflect on those areas and then identify what are the areas that you need to work on. As a result, what personal development goals do you think you should set, and then review those with the manager. And so by doing this, I wouldn't expect the employee to go through this full process on a weekly basis, but I would expect them to do it perhaps quarterly, so every 3 months. I'd expect them to go through this process, reflect on their career goals, their personal goals, their job responsibilities. What are they doing well? What are they doing not so well? Where do they want to take on or expecting to take on more responsibilities? How are projects going? What's blocking them? What expertise and experience do they need to develop in these areas? What feedback have they had via performance reviews, 360 feedback from colleagues, from one-to-ones, etc.? What do they think are their strengths? What do they need to grow further? What do they need to improve? All so that they can reflect on the few areas that they're going to work on, and as a result, specific or even smart personal development goals to help them to excel and to make progress. And the amazing thing is that when the employee puts this time up front and as a result shares this with the manager and discuss it with the manager, suddenly you go from having a relaxed, informal, low value one-to-one to having something that really catapults the employee's performance. And in fact, I was running a session with a team for a FTSE 100 company fairly recently, where I was talking to them about how to empower their teams to have better career growing one-to-ones between their managers and team members. And it was great. One thing that they loved the approach, but one of the things that really stood out was after doing some role plays and things, one of the team members said, it feels like by doing this, it makes it almost impossible for the manager to say no to something I'm essentially asking to get involved in as a result of a personal development goal. So, for example, to get involved in a particular project, or to take on a new responsibility, or to work towards a certain role. And my response to that was firstly, yes, well done, and we had a round of applause for that person, because their personal journey, like at the beginning of that session, they shared that they'd been basically waiting for 7 years to move into a manager position, but because they'd been told that they were ready for it, but that there wasn't a manager role available. And as I said to them, like, why would you delegate your life success, career success and happiness to a manager who has control over a certain number of roles? And why would you equate progression and your career growth resulting in getting this particular role? There's loads of things you can do. You can develop amazing skills and into other responsibilities. You don't need that particular role, that particular position, and that particular manager to give it to you. You need to take more ownership. And so for her, it's this amazing journey where she was then sharing, it feels like I can basically ask for anything. And what I said is, yes, you can, because you're doing the preparation, you're taking the ownership for it, and you're being completely reasonable with your suggestions, and your manager can do it. But it's not because the manager is held to ransom by the approach. It's because they want to say yes. The manager wants the employee, their team member, to come to them with their career goals, their understanding, and as a result, what they want to develop on. The manager wants their team members to improve their performance, to take on more responsibility, to develop and be able to take on roles and deputize for them and do all of those things. The manager should want to be seen by their manager and their leaders as someone who's developing their team. How amazing is it if the manager turns up to their leadership team meeting or whatever and has one of their junior team members with them and explains, the reason that Kerry's here is because she's shadowing me, because she's really interested in getting involved in how we prepare analytics presentations for leadership teams. And so I've brought her along so that she can see how the analytics that the team have done ends up translated into a presentation for the team. I mean, firstly, fantastic for Kerry. Kerry's going to love the fact that you've done that as the manager. It's also going to develop Kerry, which means that she can then support the preparation of those presentations for you and even deputise when you're not available. It also means that you're able to do a better job in those presentations, but also the leadership team look at that and go, wow, that is exactly what developing people should look like. What a great manager. What a great addition to our leadership team in the future. So you can see that this isn't just a clever trick technique for the employee to get slightly more out of their career. This fundamentally changes the relationship and the value of one-to-ones, but allows not only the individual, but the manager and everyone in the organization to transcend and take on more responsibility and perform better when they're able to. Once they've addressed their issues, they can take on more responsibility and grow, and as a result achieve more amazing things as an organisation and elevate the impact. So that is why I think you should have fantastic one-to-ones with team members. You should make sure that you're using them to recognize good work, address issues, give tasks to team members and check in on them, engage and connect with your team members, support them and unblock them, and to support them and develop and grow them. And the key ways in which you can have better one-to-one meetings with your team members that help you achieve more performance, continuously improve and grow their careers is fundamentally down to your preparation. For you as a manager, capturing those thoughts, reflections, feedback throughout the week, and for the team member, preparing in advance, thinking about their wins, their blockers, their personal development goals, and particularly using a useful checklist or a series of things that they should think about in terms of their personal development, so their career goals, their personal development goals, their job responsibility, their personal goals, their job responsibilities, their projects, and feedback that they've received to come to you with really clear personal development goals. Now, if all of that sounds like too much time, I haven't got time for that. Here's the kicker. All of what I've just described takes less time than what you're probably already doing. And by what you're already doing, I mean ad hoc meetings, having those distractions, having the issues, having to have the direct check-ins on a regular basis, having to pick up when something goes wrong, having to firefight, having to rehire because you've lost someone because they're not growing in the organization, having to do responsibilities that you should have delegated weeks, months, or years ago. That is where your time is currently being spent. Let's get rid of that. Instead, replace it with a small amount of preparation and excellent one-to-one meetings. Put that in. Let me know in the comments what you found most useful, and let me know particularly whether you apply some of these things in your business with your team members or with your managers. Let me know what's been most useful for you, and also let me know what questions you've got. What would you like me to dive deeper into on future sessions? What would be most useful to you right now? Thanks very much for listening. I hope you found it useful. Thanks.